What's going on, beautiful people? It is I, your flying locomotive, and faster than a speeding bullet SuperCliff, coming at you live with a brand new video. So I want to talk about the current status of the MCU, and more specifically, I want to dive into why the MCU, I think, has lost its magic with the audience. But also I want to talk about why we should be looking forward towards the future. And yes, I'm sure I haven't been the only one to say that, a lot of Phase 4 and so far Phase 5 has been mediocre. A lot of misses in terms of quality storytelling. So let's get into it. Now, full disclosure, I love the MCU. I remember like it was only yesterday. Me and my dad were in the theater, ready to see Iron Man 1, and I want to say it was around the part where Tony is slamming his hammer. It was that moment where both my dad and I, we looked at each other, and without saying anything, we mutually agreed that what we were watching was something great. Iron Man 1 was so good, and not because it was an action movie, nor it being the birth of the MCU. Iron Man is a fantastic movie because of its story and its characters. Sometimes when people ask the question, why is this movie good? Or why do I like this show? Why am I so invested in this book? Well, with regards to Iron Man, it wasn't because it was simply a comic book movie. The character of Tony Stark was brought to life. Yes, he was super rich, insanely smart, and amazing at women, but underneath all of it, Tony was a flawed man. Basically, we believe in Tony Stark as a character. We get to see him grow from a weapons manufacturer who doesn't care about people to someone who, after bearing witness to what his weapons can do, we see someone whose mindset has been changed. We, the audience, understand why Tony did what he did. We understand why he shut down the weapons production. We know why Tony Stark became Iron Man. Thus, following the critical and financial success of Iron Man, Disney buys Marvel Studios, and the world gets more Marvel. The Avengers assemble, a couple more Iron Man flicks, Thor is played by an Australian actor, Captain America is amazing, Black Panther, and fast forward 22 films later, we complete the Infinity Saga, Thanos is defeated, and alas, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the highest money-making machine within Hollywood, an unstoppable force. Now, before we dive into Phase 4 and Phase 5, let's travel back in time during the early days of the MCU, sometime around Phases 1 and 2. You see, before Kevin Feige became Feige the Almighty, Chief Creator Officer of Marvel Entertainment, the head honcho of movies, shows, comics, and animation, he was just the president of Marvel Studios. Now, what's fascinating about Kevin Feige was his vision. Feige has the skill of seeing untapped potential. In a day where people saw only Spider-Man and X-Men as Marvel's moneymakers, and directors like Steven Spielberg and Martin Scorsese as the only ones who can deliver quality films, Feige agreed, but he also saw the potential of an Iron Man story directed by someone like Jon Favreau, the guy who made Elf. A movie about Captain America, A Man at a Time, directed by the Russo brothers who did, an episode in Community. Shang-Chi, a character whose father is a villain, and how does a hero contend with something like that? You see, Feige envisioned a shared universe of movies, just as creators Stan Lee and Jack Kirby did with the comics. Now, what also makes Feige a rare specimen within Hollywood is the fact that yes, he's very good at his job. He knows what to do when it comes to business and making things happen, but he's also a nerd. He loves Marvel, and not only because of its profit, but because of its untapped potential for storytelling. Feige did what other big shots in Hollywood couldn't. He took risks. Sure, Spider-Man made box office money, but so too could a property like the Avengers, and C-listers such as the Guardians of the Galaxy, who are now some of the most popular characters in movie culture. Feige understood what comic book movies needed, and just like any good movie, it needs a great script, and a cast, director, and crew of people who care about the project. However, when it comes to Hollywood, everyone has a boss. There's always that person who stands in the way of greatness. And so in this case, it was Isaac Perlmutter, aka Ike Perlmutter. For you see, Perlmutter is the complete opposite of Kevin Feige. He's very corporate. Feige saw Marvel as a treasure chest filled with stories. Perlmutter saw Marvel as a goldmine. Nothing more and nothing less. Not to mention that Perlmutter was on the record for saying some pretty terrible things. He's the guy who said women can't lead billion-dollar franchises, and he was also against the idea of having a Black Panther movie. And heck, Feige even went on record telling some of his people that he may not be here in the morning. Basically, Perlmutter was getting in the way of what Feige wanted to do, and Feige was on the verge of quitting. However, the gods of the universe took note of this, and alas, Bob Iger, CEO of Disney at the time, stepped in. Seeing the talent that Feige had, Iger basically took the building block that was Perlmutter and moved it. Therefore, a clear line of communication was open between Feige and Alan Horn. Alan Horn being the chairman of Walt Disney Studios. Essentially, Feige was given more creative freedom. which paved the way for Sony and Marvel to work out deals for Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and it also paved the way for movies like Black Panther, Captain Marvel, and Shang-Chi to exist. And for me personally, the original Black Panther and Shang-Chi are some of the best Marvel movies, ever in my opinion. Now wait, you're probably asking the question, okay, but what does this have to do with the MCU's decline of late? Well, don't worry, impatient person watching my video, because I'm gonna get into that right now. Enter 2020. Bob Iger retires as Disney's CEO, opening the way for BobChapek to take over. Now, it's my belief that BobChapek was the catalyst to the current state of the MCU, and here's why. You see, BobChapek didn't share the same core values as Iger. Bob Iger was very much of the belief that Disney, while yes, it needs to make a profit, at the same time, he believed the creator's vision is important and that it must be treated with the utmost care. Now, obviously, if something wasn't making money, like Pirates of the Caribbean 5, then yeah, sure, it's your duty as a CEO to pull the plug on something like that. But when Marvel Studio comes out with Avengers Endgame, the second highest grossing movie of all time, while also being hailed with critical success, then it's your job as CEO to not change anything. What isn't broke must not be fixed. That's running a business 101. Now, Chapek's ascension happened at a time of great turmoil. In 2019, Disney released their streaming service, Disney Plus. And so like any corporate entity, Disney wanted their baby to grow. When it came to Marvel's Phase 4, this would be the phase where the MCU would integrate itself with not only the movies, but television as well. Shows like WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and Loki, these shows would provide a different way to consume Marvel storytelling, while also growing the Marvel Universe. Unlike Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or the Netflix shows, the Disney Plus shows would be integral to the MCU audience. In addition to Disney Plus, 2020 was also the year where the entire world turned to ash, with everyone being stuck in their homes for a whole year. Movies didn't get released, Black Widow had to be pushed back a full year and 2 months, production from Falcon and Winter Soldier had to stop, and its story had to be rewritten due to the plot revolving around a virus. Basically, the entire world had to be shifted. And so because of this, not only was the pandemic real and affecting everyone, it was also affecting Disney's money. Therefore, Bob Chapek, being the newly appointed CEO, whipped out his big dick energy and did some things. In wanting the company to make lost money, it was announced that movies would release in theaters, but simultaneously release on Disney Plus with Premier Access. Basically, you paid $30 to watch said movie. However, Black Widow suffered due to this, because it also went against Scarlett Johansson's contract. Thus, in July 2021, Johansson filed a lawsuit against the Walt Disney Company, alleging that the simultaneous release of Black Widow breached a stipulation in their contract. So yeah, the more money the movie made in theaters, the more money that Scarlett would make in return. And thus this became a public embarrassment. Bob Chapek at this time also took a lot of creative control away from Kevin Feige. Chapek implemented the boundaries that were installed prior to Marvel Phase 3, Marvel's most successful phase. Chapek installed his lackeys as Feige's new bosses instead of a creative like Alan Horn, thus causing a multitude of behind-the-scenes issues. Not only was Feige less powerful, but restrictions were made as well. Multiverse of Madness runtime was restricted, along with Love and Thunders. Movies had to be met in a runtime of 2 hours. The more showtimes the theaters had, the more money Disney could make. In addition, shows had to be released as mandated. If the CGI for a show or a movie wasn't finished, well, it didn't matter because we have a schedule. Now, VFX artists are always treated like shit. That much is just true, and I don't know if that's ever going to change. Given the fact that there were an insane amount of projects being put in development and that, these projects had to be met by a certain time, the CGI departments became overwhelmed. And it's quite apparent just by looking at Marvel's more recent movies. Not trying to sound like a hater, but the CGI has been abysmal. Pip the Troll, Doctor Strange's Third Eye, Love and Thunder, a lot of Moon Knight scenes, She-Hulk, everything in Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania. It was a disaster. Marvel Studios, a studio known for its quality storytelling, became a studio seen as a cog for the machine that is Disney. Quality wasn't being made anymore. Rather, the philosophy of quantity versus quality became the focus. What's that? Marvel needs more projects? Okay, announce an Agatha show. Let's get an Echo show. And let's culminate the entire multiverse saga in 2025 because we want the money now. However, when in doubt, bring back a hero. Thus, Bob Iger returned in November of 2022 as Disney's CEO. With the company's financials severely lacking, public embarrassments, controversial decisions, Bob Chapek was canned. And alas, things started to happen fast. Following the firing of Bob Chapek, Iger fired the lackeys, thus giving Feige back his power that he lost. From there, Feige was back in the driver's seat. Agatha Cloven of Chaos was put on indefinite hold. Echo and Ironheart were delayed for a later release. The Marvels, which had a July 2023 release date, got pushed back to November. Secret Wars pushed back to 2026. And heck, Feige of late has been on the record saying that they're going to slow things down in order to provide sufficient spacing in between projects. That way, scripts can have more time to be fleshed out, and the CGI VFX departments, don't have to continue to drown. Essentially, what we've come to learn from this terrible experiment is the fact that you can't rush greatness. The MCU is successful because of its storytelling. Yes, was Avengers Endgame the biggest movie of all existence? Yes, that much is true. But the reason wasn't because of comic book movies and action scenes, it was because the audience loved the characters. Because we spent time with these characters, Iron Man, Captain America, and Hulk, they became a part of our lives for almost a decade. BobChapek's philosophy nearly destroyed the MCU's reputation. Now, is the MCU in the best position of late? No, it's not. But that doesn't mean that hope is lost. To say that Bob Iger and those within Marvel Studios aren't addressing the problem is untrue. Sadly, corporations often chew more than they can handle. But as long as changes are being made, as long as quality trumps quantity, then the MCU is moving in the right direction. For greatness doesn't just happen. Greatness needs to grow. Greatness needs time. So yeah, as always, I'm your majestic sayer of words, SuperCliff, and if you guys are new to the channel, then do me a solid by smashing that like and subscribe button, and also the notification bell so that you'll never miss out on an upload, and so that you'll always be kept up to date with your favorite top tier comics happening in the comic book world. Now tell me, what are your thoughts and opinions on the current state of the MCU? Do you guys agree with my take on what's happening? Despite what's happening with Ant-Man at the box office, do you guys think the MCU is starting to, head in the right direction? Let me know down in the comment section below. And until the next video, peace. Giggity goo.